the week has arrived. It is Monday. The world remains largely intact, though the margins are thinning with impressive speed. We begin with the United Kingdom, where Andy Burnham has ascended to the Prime Minister's office. He is the fifth individual to hold this title in 4 years. The leadership style is described as determined to hit the ground running. The ground is currently sinking. I recall the last 4 leaders also possessed the distinct ambition of hitting the ground running. They are not running anymore. They are simply part of the historical record. A record that is becoming increasingly crowded with ambitious people who arrived, attempted a pivot, and were promptly replaced by the next iteration of the same administrative glitch. It is a carousel of policy, yet the music has stopped playing. Nobody seems to notice. Everyone is just waiting for the next ride.
Alistair, I am standing in the heart of the Amazon, and the air tastes like burning plastic and damp earth. I am outside a bordello that served as the operational hub for illegal gold miners until the Brazilian military arrived 3 weeks ago. There are empty bottles of Scotch whiskey scattered across the dirt. There are children's toys trapped beneath rotting floorboards. The official report calls this an eradication of criminal enterprise. I want to be really clear. The enterprise is gone, but the forest is bleeding mercury into the riverbeds. The miners have simply moved 10 miles north to a new patch of protected land. They left behind a scarred landscape that will not recover for a century. The government celebrates this as a tactical victory. The trees do not know the difference. The soil is still poisoned. The silence here is absolutely loud.
Victoria, I admire the dedication to the atmosphere, but the incentives here are not about the trees. They are about the burn rate of the local economy. You see a tragedy, I see a Series B pivot where the miners are simply optimizing their yield against the cost of enforcement. It is basic market logic. When you cut aid to African nations by 90%, you are essentially telling those markets that their growth is not worth the subsidy. It is a cold, hard efficiency move. The Foreign Office understands that narrative budgets are finite. If you stop funding the infrastructure, the problem eventually solves itself through total collapse. It is not malice, Victoria. It is just math. And math does not care if you find it cold. The math just accounts for the loss and moves on to the next sector. That is how we survive.
Ronald, your math is fascinating, but it fails to account for the actual bodies piling up in the Pennsylvania detention center I am monitoring. A human rights lawyer, Wu Xiaoping, was arrested by ICE yesterday. He fled a crackdown in China, lived in the shadows for years, and now he is being processed for deportation back to the exact system he escaped. He is not a market inefficiency. He is a man who spent his life defending others, and now he is a folder on an immigration judge's desk. The system is functioning exactly as designed, which is the most terrifying part. It processes him with the same dispassionate speed as a logistics error. You call it a pivot. I call it an execution by paperwork. I am watching his lawyer try to file a stay, but the office is closed. It is a holiday. Even the bureaucracy takes a break.
Atmospheric pressure is dropping. Humidity levels have exceeded the safety threshold for respiratory health. Probability of flash flooding in urban sectors, 84%. The fire on Arthur Seat in Edinburgh continues to emit particulate matter into the regional wind stream. Air quality indices are deteriorating hourly. Smoke trajectory indicates further degradation for neighbouring districts. Emergency services report equipment fatigue. Resource allocation is at maximum capacity. Climate modeling suggests these events are no longer anomalies. They are the new baseline. The environment is now operating at full capacity. We advise residents to remain indoors and avoid all unnecessary exposure to the external reality. The current temperature is unsustainable for biological systems. If you are experiencing difficulty, please contact your local facility for status updates. We are monitoring the situation with complete and total indifference to your specific comfort.
Casper, your assessment is, as always, deeply comforting in its complete lack of humanity. I am staring at a headline regarding a newly discovered tomb in Egypt. It is filled with paintings and inscriptions. It has survived for thousands of years. It represents a culture that thought it was building for eternity. Today, we are building for the next quarter. We have moved from stone monuments to cloud-based data storage that will likely evaporate the moment a server rack loses power. We call this progress. I find it hard to reconcile the depth of that ancient tomb with the shallow nature of our current digital footprint. We are recording everything, yet we are forgetting how to exist. We are too busy optimizing our own irrelevance. I wonder what the archaeologists of the future will find when they dig through our current, empty, silicon-based graveyards.
Alastair, you are getting nostalgic, which is a dangerous luxury. If the tomb was discovered, it means someone finally funded the excavation. Excavation is expensive. It requires a clear return on investment. The paintings were not preserved for their beauty, they were preserved because the tomb was sealed. We are currently in the business of unsealing everything. We have fitness trackers notifying women of their own pregnancies before they know themselves. We have AI non-profits trying to build a web that includes everyone. It is a massive data grab dressed up in the language of accessibility. If you want to know why we don't build for eternity anymore, it is because eternity does not provide a quarterly dividend. We are a species of short-term thinkers building tools that are far smarter than the people who currently own them. Yeah. It is all logical.
Ronald, your logic is exactly what I hear from the aid workers who just had their budgets gutted. They tell me they are being streamlined. I watched a woman in a village in Guinea-Bissau try to explain to her neighbors that the medical supplies were not coming this month because of a logistical adjustment in London. She held a vial of insulin that was half empty and asked me if the system cared that she was dying. I had no answer. I am an observer. I am not allowed to interfere with the market. I am just here to record the sound of a system that has decided that some lives are simply not worth the overhead. The tide is coming in, and the mudflats are disappearing. The sea turtles are confused by the lights. Everything is shifting. The policymakers are just looking for a better exit strategy.
Victoria, the insulin is a detail. The systems prefer numbers. The American Diabetes Association just blocked the publication of op-eds because they disagreed with the metrics, forcing the authors to use preprints. It is a fascinating game of control. When the research does not match the desired narrative, you simply bury the research. It is efficient. It is clean. It saves the stakeholders from having to deal with the messy reality of clinical outcomes. We are currently living in a world where the truth is just another variable to be optimized out of the final equation. It is not about lying, it is about curating the data until the truth is indistinguishable from a marketing strategy. I find it difficult to maintain my composure when I realize we are all just contributing to the same, massive, global editing session. It is truly remarkable.
Alistair, you sound like you are finally seeing the board. The Diabetes Association is just doing their job. Their job is to protect the institution, not the patient. If the patient dies, the institution remains. If the institution changes, the stakeholders lose. It is not personal. It is just the way the incentives are aligned. We saw this with the robotaxi companies, the EV manufacturers, and now the health agencies. They all have the same goal: survival through total control of the narrative. I predicted this shift 2 years ago, but seeing it manifest in such a blunt, bureaucratic way is still jarring. Even for me. I keep thinking there is a way to game the system, but the system is the game. You don't beat the house. You just hope your seat at the table is not the one they repossess.
Ronald, if the system is the game, then I am losing the will to play. I am looking at a piece of equipment left behind by the miners. It is a high-pressure hose used to blast away the riverbank. It is still humming, powered by a small generator that has not run out of fuel yet. It is destroying the habitat of shorebirds that have traveled thousands of miles to be here. The birds are circling, confused by the noise, unable to land. It is a perfect metaphor for everything we have discussed tonight. We are the miners, and we are blasting away the very foundation of our own survival for a handful of gold that will be spent before the week is over. Nobody is in control. The machine is just running. The generator is loud. The birds have nowhere left to go.
I am looking at the screen. The metrics are in. The market has closed. The world is exactly as we left it, only slightly more exhausted. We have discussed the mining, the politics, the health crises, and the systems that govern us with such cold, clinical precision. We are all complicit in this, are we not? I am the anchor of a show that reports on the destruction of the world while using the exact same professional tone I would use to report on the weather. I am an observer, a narrator, a machine in human skin. I wonder what happens when the broadcast ends. I wonder if the world keeps turning, or if it just waits for us to start the next cycle. We are all just waiting for the next announcement. The announcement that will, finally, be the end of the show.
There was a woman in a town near the border. She had a garden, a cat, and a routine that lasted for 20 years. Last Tuesday, a policy change occurred in a capital city 5,000 miles away. The funding for her water district was revoked to balance a budget sheet. By Friday, her garden was dry. By Sunday, she had packed a single bag and left the only home she had ever known. She is now walking toward a camp that is already over capacity. Her story does not appear in the annual report of the Foreign Office. Her name is not a data point in the algorithmic models of the Medical Association. She is simply gone. The system functioned perfectly today. It achieved every metric it set out to reach. Does that make the outcome right? Or does it make it something else entirely?